Hi, everybody. Happy Pride Month, and welcome back to Straight Guy Queer Eye. I'm your host, Paul Yen. We made it to episode 7, the finale of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 1. A correction from last week. In last week's episode, I said the title of the song was Shackle by Mary Mary, but the title of the song is actually Shackles by Mary Mary. Many apologies to Mary Mary, and apologies to RuPaul since it's one of his favorite songs. This is not a correction, but I want to apologize because this week, for some reason, during recording, there's just a lot of noise going on. So if you guys hear airplanes, helicopters, loud banging, maybe they're gunshots, I'm sorry. As always, we have an important ethics statement that I want to make clear. Being straight gives me privileges that the queer community does not get. I will never fully understand the trauma, the drama, and all the other homophobic bullshit that queer folks deal with on a day-to-day basis. I am not an expert in queer culture. I'm also not a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or a doctor. As host of the Straight Guy Queer Eye podcast, I'm here to introduce people to shows that I love and enjoy. More importantly, I'm here to listen and to learn about the queer community, and I hope to pass that knowledge on to like-minded people who want to make some sort of difference in the queer community, their own community, and in their own lives. A quick recap of episode 7. The final 3 queens are Bibi Zahara, Nina Flowers, and Rebecca Glasscock. This week, RuPaul doesn't come into the workroom. Instead, it's the regular judges Merle Ginsburg and Santino Rice. We learn that in RuPaul's career, he's shared the screen with stars such as Elton John and Diana Ross. And for today's final challenge, the queens will be sharing the screen with RuPaul. So there's no mini challenge for the finale, just a maxi challenge where the queens will be performing with RuPaul in his music video for his new single, CoverGirl, Put the Bass in Your Walk. So the queens will work with dancer and choreographer Ryan Heffington, who has gone on to win 2 Grammys for choreography for Arcade Fire's We Exist and Sia's Chandelier. They will also have to write and perform a solo featured piece with openly gay rapper Caswell, and the video will be directed by Mike Ruiz, who we met in the first episode for the photo shoot when all the queens posed on the orange Mustang. Merle and Santino finished by telling the girls what RuPaul always tells them before a challenge: don't fuck it up. So Ryan Heffington comes out in heels and he tells the girls they have to bring it, and right away they start working on the choreography. Nina and Bibi are picking up the choreo quickly, and Rebecca was struggling. After the choreo, the queens sit down for a one-on-one lunch with RuPaul. Lunch is in quotes because they're not actually eating lunch. There's a plate. It's got 2 Tic Tacs on it. It's sort of making fun of, they're not making fun of people with weight issues. They're making fun, I think, of the modeling industry, because the joke is sort of like models are expected not to eat so they can stay wafer thin. And that's sort of, so they're making fun of the supermodel industry, I hope. So the first person to sit down with Ru is Nina Flowers. Ru mentions how sweet Nina is despite her severe look. Ru asks Nina if she's ever had a really difficult, dark period in her life. And we spoke about it last week when her mom passed away. We talked about moms, and we didn't know this, though, that Nina actually took a break from performing for 2 years to rethink what she wanted to do with her life. And after 2 years, she came to the realization that this is what her mom would have wanted her to do. We also learned that while Nina's mom was alive, even though Nina's father knew that she did drag or was gay, they never spoke about it. But when Nina decided to get back into performing, she had a big celebration in Puerto Rico, and her sister brought her dad as a surprise. And after she got the support from her dad, I could go, is what she said, or that she could do this. Bibi Zahara sits down, and Ru asks if Bibi has thought about what she's going to do after the show. And she says she wants to do community outreach because, as we learned in the earlier episode, that Cameroon, where she's from, has its problems when it comes to HIV, AIDS, and poverty. And in the middle of saying this, she starts breaking down and crying because she can see, I guess, in her imagination or literally people dying in front of her, and she doesn't know what to do. Rebecca Glasscock comes in, and Rue asks Rebecca how she would respond to people who may say that she's the youngest one in the competition and that she doesn't have as much experience as the other queens and may be in over her head. Her response is that she may have encountered a little bit of shade from the other girls in the competition, but that's just something she's used to. So then Rue follows up by saying or asking that, or not asking, saying that she often asks herself what was her contribution to making the situation the way it is, and what does Rebecca think she's done to alienate the other queens. And Rebecca responds by saying that maybe it's because she's quiet and keeps to herself. That could have been interpreted as being shady, but that she's just the way she is and she can't help it. So after the interview ends, the queens go to work with Caswell, the rapper. When Nina Flowers and BB each met with Caswell, they both came completely prepared. The only issue was that because they both have accents, Caswell had to make sure that they focused on their enunciation. But by the time each of the queens were done, Caswell was pleased. Rebecca Glasscock, on the other hand, meets with Caswell and was unprepared. Came with only 4 bars, was supposed to have 8 bars. Caswell was not happy, or at least he wasn't pissed, but he just said he wasn't pleased. And he also said that if Rebecca Glasscock had come more prepared, they could have focused on the work instead of sitting around waiting for her to come up with the other 4 bars. So then here we see BB and Nina Flowers' experience as older queens come through, right? Because they know what it takes and they didn't squander that opportunity. And then so we move on to the filming. RuPaul, of course, goes first and crushes it. Just watching Ru in his element, he takes up space and owns the camera. Then on to the queens who shoot as a trio. So Mike Ruiz says this of each of the queens. BB has amazing energy, is incredible in front of the camera, understands her body, and moves well in a fluid motion. Nina, he says, nailed her choreo and is an amazing performer. Rebecca is beautiful in front of the camera and is aesthetically the realest of the 3. So then they move on to the solos. BB and Nina, again, they do their thing. They're more experienced. They take direction well. They're bringing it. And when it's Rebecca's solo, she's nowhere to be found. She's completely gone. So they cut to the workroom and she's frazzled and she feels like she's being rushed. And then when she finally gets to set, her hairline, her male boy hairline is showing and it's not presentable at all for the music video. So then Mike Ruiz has to give her some more time. So with that free time, he brings Nina and BB back in and they get more screen time. And then in the interview, Rebecca says, you can't rush a queen, and that's just bullshit or something like that. She wasn't very happy that she was being rushed. But then they cut to BB after, and she says that, hey, we were all rushed. We were all given the same amount of time, but she made sure that the things she wanted to look good looked good. That's being a professional. Once Rebecca finally gets back on set, Mike Ruiz had to guide her through most of the solo performance and had to really hold her hands to finally get what he wanted. So after that's all done, we go to the workroom. The queens are prepping for their final runway look. Unfortunately, there wasn't any sort of handmade costume or outfit or dress or anything like that. It's just they're working on themselves in terms of makeup and they're just putting their outfits together that were already prepared. But during this moment, we learn a few things. So I think most people know the word loco in Spanish means crazy. She's teaching BB this because maybe BB doesn't know this. But she says that when a queen says it to another queen, loco or loca, it's used as a term of endearment. Similar to when you say something like, girl this, girl that, hey, have you seen this girl? But if a straight person calls a queen a loca, then it's used to put down a queer person. We also learned that most of them never learned each other's names, guy names. Rebecca says that in the drag world, queens don't usually call each other by their guy names, only by their alter ego. In the workroom, Nina also says that after the finale, she knows everyone is going to go their separate ways, but she hopes to stay in touch and work with the queens again. And BB follows that with the fact that she may have come here to win, but ultimately she's made friends here. And when Nina asks if Rebecca agrees, she just says no, that she's got to keep her eye on the prize because she came here to win and can't let things like friendship get in her way. So for some, it's very Mamba mentality. For my non-basketball fans, that's kind of Kobe's thing. He has the Mamba mentality, the killer instinct, doesn't have time for friends, just is going to go out and be a killer. Runway category is, there is no category, but I'll call it the final runway. For the finale, there are no guest judges, only the OGs, Merle Ginsburg, Santino Rice, and of course, RuPaul. And that makes sense, because it'd be unfair for someone to come in and make a decision or give their 2 cents having only seen the queens for the finale and not what they've done for the totality of the season. Nina Flowers walks the runway for the last time, rocking a dark faux hawk and a purple pantsuit with flowers on it. I just realized that she's been wearing flowers a lot because her name is Nina Flowers. That's kind of embarrassing. It's cinched together with a purple corset. It's also got a train, but instead of the train just trailing behind her, it's actually sewed into the seams on the side of her pants. Pun of the week goes to RuPaul when she says of Nina, she's going back to her roots. I think it's because there were flowers on her dress, but also because the previous week, Nina was more conservative when she dressed like her mom for the runway. So whether Ru intended for there to be a double entendre, maybe even a triple entendre if you count how dark her faux hawk is, as in the roots on her head. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Whatever. Santino thought Nina's lyrics were a bit on the Dr. Seuss level, but to be fair, given that English isn't her first language and none of these girls have ever rapped before, I wouldn't judge any of them too hard for that. A little fact, if you've been paying attention, Nina has never had to lip sync for her life. Ru points that out, and I think that's pretty cool, and got to give Nina credit for that. Rebecca Glasscock's finale look is a tight, short, pink, ruffled tube skirt, I'd call it, and she, of course, looks gorgeous. Ru says she's the resident Barbie doll. As beautiful as she is, I gotta say that her outfit stood out the least to me. When she's called up, Ru asks her about what happened with her being late during the shoot and not ready, and she just said that she was having a funky day, but Ru says that she expects all her girls to be ready. When asked about the drama with the other queens, mind you, the other queens are Nina and Bibi are standing in the back, Rebecca says that she feels that the drama comes from the other queens being older, and she's basically throwing shade saying they're old. And then once they watch her video, overall, even though her lyrics were good, the judges thought her choreo was the weakest of the bunch. And then Bibi Zahara Benet strutted down the runway, the final runway, in a shiny, either black and red or a deep navy and red. I'm kind of colorblind when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's a sequin gown, and she looked as elegant as ever for her final runway walk. And she was the best one. Santino, who never seems to have anything nice to say to anybody or about anybody, was shaking his head in awe the entire time that she was walking down the runway. For the music video, the judges just loved how confident she is. Ru said that Bibi was a moving piece of art. Spoiler alert, if you have not watched the finale episode and don't want to know who wins the whole damn thing, I suggest you stop this podcast and go watch the finale, and then come back. The judges' critiques for the entire season for each queen. Bibi, Merle Ginsburg says that she's got drag superstar realness. She's an it girl. Ru says that when she sees Bibi, she doesn't see a man in a wig. She sees a graceful, beautiful creature. Santino says that there's not much negative. She may not bring it, maybe the attitude as much as Nina, but other than that, he has no problems with her. The judge's critique for Nina for the entire season was that Santino says maybe her lack of commanding the English language might be a downside, but that she has a real eye for detail. I disagree with the English language thing. Models come from all over the world, and it never seems to be an issue for them. So Merle Ginsburg The only negative she has for Nina is that a lot of the outfits were the same. And by what that she means, a lot of them were like pantsuits, while BB changed a little more. We saw more sides of BB. Rue says that Nina's got her personality working for her. Whatever she lacks in the language department, she overcomes with her genuine sweetness. And then for Rebecca's totality for the season, Rue admits that she gets mesmerized by her beauty, and then Rue wonders out loud if they let her off the hook because of it, and Merle Ginsburg jumps right in and answers with an immediate yes. Merle says that if you put her, as in Rebecca, next to BB and Nina, she ain't cutting it. Santino just says she's beautiful. So once the deliberations and the judgment and they kind of go over the whole thing is done, they bring the girls back on stage for the final time. Rue tells Rebecca that she's brought a lot to the competition, but it is not her time. And there was no edit. You could see her face just drop. She was not happy. So then it comes down to BB Zahara Benet and Nina Flowers. And for a change, it's the two best queens who will be lip syncing for their life. And they lip sync to, of course, Rue's new song, Cover Girl, Put That Bass in Your Walk. Before they do, they tell each other that they love each other, which was very sweet. And they just have fun, y'all. There was no precedence set yet, so they just lip synced to the song how they saw fit. You can't really describe a lip sync when they're not doing anything notable. But at one point, BB is on the ground and finds a way to slowly slide through Nina Flowers' legs, and they both play off of each other. And that was it. And once it was done, the judges clapped and they said it was amazing. Little do they know that in later seasons there are freaking acrobatic queens, some badass dancing queens that just bring it. And not to take anything away from these queens, because again, they had nothing to work off of. They were the guinea pigs. And the first ever winner of season 1 of RuPaul's Drag Race is, if you haven't watched it, this is the point to stop it. This is your last chance. The winner is BB Zahara Benet. She immediately goes to the ground in joy and shock. She's so happy. Remember, there's nothing for the queens to base this off of, so they've just spent 7 to 8 to 9 weeks or whatever it is going through this process, and it was so well deserved. After watching 15 seasons plus All Stars plus Untucked, I can objectively say that BB deserved the win. She was the most consistent in season 1. She had the most wins, even down to her answer to why she should be the next drag superstar stood out amongst the others. So congratulations to BB Zahara Benet. She cried and thanked the judges and got to walk the runway with her crown. And it's really funny because in this finale, it's just held on the same stage that the queens have been walking for the entire season. In later seasons, they rent out a theater, like a big theater, and they put a big presentation on. So it's just really kind of nice to see BB be the first queen, even though it was just the old runway. I do want to give a shout to Nina. Instantly after BB was announced as the winner, Nina hugged her without hesitation and seemed so genuinely happy. And upon her exit, she says she may not have won the title, but she won other things. She won a great experience, she won great friends, and that she's going home a winner. These are the things that stood out to me in the finale of season 1 of RuPaul's Drag Race. I apologize, I'm probably going to ramble, but here we go. The behind the scenes. I love seeing behind the scenes of things, especially for this because the queens are out of drag as men. When Santino and Merle walk into the workroom, they point out how different BB, Nina, and Rebecca all look out of drag. It really is an illusion. I love seeing the choreography with Ryan Huffington. Is that his name? Huffington. So they get to work, and they get to they have heels on while they're learning the choreo, but they're dressed as men. Seeing the work that it takes to put together a dance routine, it's like seeing your favorite artist or entertainer doing their thing behind the scenes, you know what I mean? But on a much bigger scale. So these queens are doing this with a day or 2, 3 to prepare, whereas in someone like I don't know, Michael Jackson or Taylor Swift or Prince or Eminem or whoever. They've got a long time to prepare, and it's stuff they already know. So it makes you either appreciate the hard work that the queens put into their craft, or it makes you appreciate the bigger budget productions that we often take for granted, or both. As an actor, I really enjoy this process, the behind the scenes process. I enjoy the collaboration process, especially in theater. You know, you're with the rest of your cast, you're working with the director, your choreographer, if there's dance in it, the costume designer, the stage manager, etc. And for a majority of the time, you're not in costume. So there's something magical about that, being around something or seeing something where it's just, you know, they're in sweats or whatever, and then suddenly when the show comes on, it transforms into this amazing thing. It's sort of like a metaphor for these drag queens. You know, they're behind the scenes, you know, they're men, but when the show is on, they're these beautiful women. So that's just really interesting thing to me. I told you I was going to ramble. Anyways, as an actor, you're putting this play or piece together with the guidance and vision of the director. It's such an incredibly beautiful process, and to be able to see drag queens doing it in their profession is a reminder of how serious I've got to take my process. And hopefully for all of you, whatever it is that you love to do and are passionate about, that you take it as seriously as they do. The saying goes, right? Luck is preparation meets opportunity. And BB and Nina are definitely prepared, whereas someone like Rebecca Glasscock is not as prepared and maybe thinks she can skirt by just because she's pretty. And that's not how it works. With the end of the first season of RuPaul's Drag Race, I'm reminded of the fact that RuPaul put something out there that some would consider not perfect. The first season of RuPaul is often considered the lost season. So oftentimes when people watch RuPaul for the first time, they either watch the current season that's on, or they'll jump into the second or third season because it was the guinea pig season. There's the weird filter that gave it that gold hue. It kind of made the episodes feel unwatchable or weird. And so some people turn it off right away. The set looks a bit janky. The work tables look like they came from IKEA. Some of the queens aren't as polished as the ones we see in later seasons. But I think that's more reason to watch it. RuPaul and his team had a vision of something, and they could have waited for it to be perfect, to have that right budget, the best drag queens, or bigger prizes, bigger challenges. But instead of waiting for all of that, they took a leap and showed the world that they had something special. And then after the world saw how special it was, the money came in, along with the fans and the decked out sets. And now RuPaul's Drag Race is a part of the cultural zeitgeist. So much so that you've got entire states trying to prevent drag queens from performing in queer clubs, venues, drag queen story hour for kids, you know? And because of that, you've got drag queens marching in Washington, D.C. to exercise their freedom of speech. RuPaul's Drag Race eventually gets special guest judges such as Nancy Pelosi and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. RuPaul's Drag Race is more than just a reality show. It's not responsible for the movement by itself, but it's a big part of that movement. It's a protest. And it all started from this lost season that I can't recommend enough. Another thing that stood out to me was when Nina Flowers says that she's going home a winner, even though she didn't win the Drag Queen Superstar title. It makes me think of what Giannis Antetokounmpo said about being a failure. And again, for my non-basketball fans, he's a star player for the Milwaukee Bucks. Really good player. And if you don't know, they call him the Greek Freak. He basically didn't even get to the Eastern Conference Finals for the NBA championship this year. And a reporter asked him if he felt like the season was a failure. And he responded, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, no, just because you don't win doesn't make you a failure. You know, and all the blood, sweat, and tears you put into something isn't always going to garner the results that you expected. But that doesn't make you a failure. Because in the process of bleeding, sweating, and crying, you've learned something, right? A new skill, something about yourself, something about others, something you didn't know before. Maybe you've made new friends like Nina. Maybe you've moved on from old friends. The potential in failure is limitless, is what I took away from that. The important thing is that you pick yourself back up, you take what you've learned, and you do it all over again. So Nina Flowers is right. She put herself out there and improved herself as a drag queen, and more importantly, as a human being. If you haven't heard it yet, I actually recommend listening to JJ Redick's podcast. Again, another basketball player. I'm a basketball fan. He has this podcast called The Old Man and the Three, and he talks about failure. It's really good. And if you've ever felt like a failure, or if you feel like whatever it is that you're doing and you're not succeeding and that you're just failing, listen to what he's saying. And because many basketball players have quote unquote failed, but not really. I think one of the things that stood out to me the most in this episode was when Nina got the support from her dad and that she said she could go. I felt the same in my acting career. Now, acting is far from even being close to controversial in the way that coming out as gay or being a drag queen or being a transhuman being is controversial. And I don't mean that because I don't think it should be controversial. It's not to me at all. But for many people who are intolerant or whatever, it is to them. But I remember I'd get these little digs from my dad about going back to school instead of being an actor, to choose some real profession, anything. But I remember one day, after doing it for a few years, I told him I was heading to an audition, and he genuinely said, "Good luck," just like how Nina's dad's, accepted her. And I can really relate to that because, man, when he said good luck and meant it, I didn't give a shit whether I booked that audition or not. I don't even remember what it was for. I was just so elated to have him be supportive of my acting career for the first time ever. And since then, he's come around to the realization that life is short. Mind you, my dad is now in his 80s. And he's even tried to take credit for pushing me to do what it is in my life that makes me happy. And I always call him out on it too, and it's really funny. All this is to say that what I'm doing is just a career choice. To me, it's important, but it's not my sexual orientation. Nobody's threatening my life or threatening to blow up a Target because they're selling acting books or, things about acting, where it's deeply, I read the note wrong there. But basically, being an actor isn't tough when you compare it to something like being a drag queen, where your lives are being threatened. And so, like I said, I'm rambling, but the point is that whatever it is in your life you want to do, as long as you're not hurting others, please do it. Don't let anybody hold you back. Don't let your parents hold you back. Don't let your spouse hold you back. If you want to do something, do it. RuPaul did it with season 1 of RuPaul's Drag Race. I don't know, I've never met RuPaul personally yet, but to see RuPaul do this, it inspires me, and I hope it inspires you to go do the damn thing and don't let anybody hold you back. I'm going to end that segment with the words of RuPaul. If you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? I know that was a lot of rambling, and maybe that transition didn't make sense, but that's okay. Well, that wraps it up for season 1 of RuPaul's Drag Race, not the end of Straight Guy Queer Eye. I do plan on coming back for season 2 of RuPaul's Drag Race, where we start to see not only improvements to the series, but now the next batch of RuPaul's Drag Race alumni have something to compare to, so they're expected to be better. And I've mentioned this before, the competition just gets more and more fierce, and I just got more and more impressed. So stay tuned for that. It's been quite the learning experience creating Straight Guy Queer Eye so far, and I do plan to continue. Like I said, my goals for the show are to have interviews, to dive into other queer content, and who knows what else. But I want to sincerely thank you for joining me on this journey so far. Happy Pride, and I'll see you next week for episode 8 of Straight Guy Queer Eye. If you're enjoying Straight Guy Queer Eye, please share it with people you know. Give it a rating on your podcast. You can follow Straight Guy Queer Eye on Instagram and Twitter at SGQE Podcast. You can follow me on my personal Instagram at Hello Paul Yen. I'd love to hear from you, so please send comments, suggestions, and feedback to sgqepodcast@gmail.com. Remember, be human, be kind.